Imagine this. It is a Tuesday morning, cold, wet, the kind of morning where the sky looks like it gave up before it even started. A man stands on the sidewalk in downtown Chicago. He is wearing what used to be a nice suit. Now the collar is frayed. The shoes, once polished, are scuffed and damp. He reaches into his coat pocket. He pulls out a single dollar bill, crumpled, faded. It is the last one he has. And right there, 3 feet away, a stranger is sleeping on a piece of cardboard, shivering. Here is the question that will define the next 12 months of this man's life. Does he keep that dollar, or does he give it away? Whatever you think you know about what happens next, I promise you, you are wrong. Stay with me, because this story doesn't end where you think it ends, and the twist at the end, it will change how you see every single stranger you walk past for the rest of your life. Welcome to Story Tales. I'm so glad you're here today. This channel exists for one reason, to bring you stories that feel real, stories that hit somewhere deep, stories that you carry with you long after the video ends. If this is your first time here, welcome home. And if you've been here before, you already know what we do. Before we go any further, if these kinds of stories move you, if they make you feel something, if they remind you what it means to be human, please take 3 seconds right now and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell, because I promise you, you do not want to miss what's coming next on this channel. All right, let's get into today's story. And I want to say this right now, do not leave before the ending, because what happens at the very end of this story is something that even I, when I first heard about it, had to sit down and just breathe for a moment. Okay, let's begin. Before we start, drop a comment right now. Where in the world are you watching from? What time is it where you are? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Go ahead, I'll wait.
His name was Daniel Mercer, 41 years old, Senior Vice President of Operations at a mid-sized logistics company in Chicago called Harrington & Co. On paper, Daniel had everything. A 3-bedroom house in Lincoln Park, a silver BMW in the driveway, a wife named Claire, and a 9-year-old daughter named Sophie who collected seashells and wanted to be a marine biologist when she grew up. He had a closet full of suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He had a platinum credit card. He had a corner office on the 14th floor that looked out over Lake Michigan on clear days. But here is the thing about a life that looks perfect from the outside. Sometimes the cracks are invisible until the whole thing falls apart at once. And for Daniel Mercer, that moment arrived on a Wednesday in the middle of February. He walked into the office at 8:47 a.m., 3 minutes late, which was unusual for him. He had been up since 4 in the morning dealing with a shipping delay out of Memphis that had cost the company 6 figures in penalties. He was exhausted. He hadn't eaten breakfast. He had a cup of coffee going cold in his left hand. His assistant, Tanya, met him at the elevator with a look on her face that he had never seen before. "They need you in the boardroom," she said quietly. "Right now."
Daniel looked at her. "The Harrington meeting isn't until 10. "It's not the Harrington meeting," she said, and she looked away. That was when he knew. He didn't know exactly what it was, but something in the air, the way Tanya's voice flattened out, the way she suddenly became very interested in her keyboard, the way the hallway felt 2 degrees colder than it should, something told him that whatever was behind that boardroom door was not good news. He was right. Inside the room sat Richard Harrington, the company's founder and majority shareholder, along with 2 people from HR and a lawyer Daniel had never seen before. There were no pleasantries, no coffee offered, no seats pulled out. Richard Harrington looked at Daniel across the long mahogany table and said 4 words that changed everything. "We're letting you go." Daniel stood perfectly still. "I'm sorry," he said. "The company is restructuring," Richard said. Your position is being eliminated, effective today. Today. Not 2 weeks from now. Not at the end of the quarter. Today. Daniel felt the room tilt slightly, like the floor had shifted a quarter inch to the left. After 11 years, he said. His voice was very calm, dangerously calm. The decision has been made, Richard said. There was a severance package, there was a non-disclosure agreement, there was a cardboard box waiting in his office with his personal items already inside. Somebody had packed his desk for him. His laptop was gone. His keycard was already deactivated. He walked out of Harrington & Co. at 9:14 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, carrying a cardboard box, wearing a suit that cost $3,000, feeling like a ghost. The first week was shock. Daniel didn't tell Claire right away. He drove around for 3 hours the morning it happened, just drove. He ended up parked outside a diner near Wicker Park that he used to go to when he was 26 and broke and just starting out. He sat there and watched people walk in and out, carrying their normal Tuesday morning lives, and he felt completely outside of everything. He told Claire that evening. She took it better than he expected. She was steady, calm. She held his hand. She said they would figure it out. She said he was brilliant and talented, and that this was not the end of anything. It was just a door closing so a better one could open. Daniel nodded. He said she was right. But something had broken inside him. Something quiet. Something he couldn't find words for. The second week, he started applying for jobs. He had contacts, he had a strong resume, he had 11 years of experience at a senior level. He told himself it would be fast, 3-4 weeks tops, and he would land somewhere better than where he'd left. The responses came in slowly, politely, positively, and then they stopped coming at all. He didn't panic, not yet. The third week, the mortgage payment came out, $4,200. Daniel paid it without blinking. He had savings, he had the severance, he had time. But the fourth week, something happens that he did not see coming. The car. The BMW had a lease. He had been floating the payments on a card he had been meaning to pay off for years, and with the disruption of the job loss, the automatic payment failed to process, and suddenly there were fees and penalties and a balance that grew overnight like something alive. He dealt with it, but it cost him more than he expected. And then Sophie's school fees came due, and then the home insurance renewal, and then, in the 6th week, the severance ran out. Daniel had lived his entire adult life at a certain financial altitude. He had never worried about whether the numbers would work. He had always assumed that they would. For the first time in his adult life, he was not sure they would. Claire noticed. Of course she did. "Daniel," she said one evening, sitting across from him at the kitchen table while Sophie was asleep upstairs. "Talk to me." "I'm handling it," he said. "I know you are," she said, "but I want to help handle it with you." He looked at her, this woman he had been married to for 14 years, this woman who had stood beside him through relocations and late nights and weekends at the office and missed recitals and forgotten anniversaries. This woman who had always been steadier than him, even when she pretended otherwise. "It's getting tight," he said finally, "but I have some leads. There's a company in Milwaukee that called yesterday, and another one in Cincinnati. I just need a few more weeks." Claire nodded. She reached across the table and took his hand. "Okay, we've got this." But 3 weeks later, the Milwaukee company went in a different direction, and the Cincinnati company decided not to fill the role after all. And the leads dried up, and the savings were almost gone. Right now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation like Daniel's, where everything fell apart at once and you had to hold it together for your family? Drop a comment below. Your story matters, and you might just help someone else who needs to hear it today. It was a Tuesday in April. Daniel left the house at 7 a.m. He told Claire he had a meeting. He didn't. He just couldn't sit inside anymore. He took the train downtown. He walked. He walked for a long time, past office buildings he used to enter without thinking twice, past coffee shops where he used to take clients, past streets he used to drive through without noticing. He sat on a bench near Millennium Park and counted what was in his wallet. $1. One single, crumpled dollar bill. Not because that was all he had in the world. There was still a thin cushion in a savings account he had promised himself he would not touch, but it was all he had on him. It was all the cash he had pulled from the last 20 he'd taken out 3 days ago. He sat there holding it, thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. And that was when he saw the man. About 20 feet away, tucked against the stone wall of the park entrance, half hidden behind a decorative planter, was a person sleeping on a flattened cardboard box. An older man, gray beard, tattered green jacket that was no match for the April wind coming off the lake. Daniel watched him for a moment. He wasn't sure what he felt. He was too tired to feel much, but he kept looking at this man, at the way his body curled in on itself against the cold, at the cracked soles of his shoes, at the plastic bag near his head that held what appeared to be his entire collection of possessions. Daniel stood up. He walked over. He crouched down next to the man. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, are you okay?" The man opened one eye, brown eye, sharp and clear, not the foggy eye of someone disoriented, an alert eye. "Alive," the man said. His voice was rough but steady. "Are you hungry?" Daniel asked. "Always," the man said. Daniel reached into his wallet. He pulled out the dollar bill. He thought, for just a fraction of a second, about what he would have thought of this moment a year ago. A year ago, he would have walked past, not out of cruelty, just out of distance, out of the comfortable blindness that comes with never having needed anything. He held the dollar out to the man. The man looked at it for a moment. Then he looked up at Daniel. "That's all you've got, isn't it?" the man said. It wasn't a question. Daniel blinked. "What?" "You heard me," the man said. There was no judgment in his voice, no pity, just a quiet kind of recognition, like he had seen this before, like he knew this particular look on a particular kind of face. Daniel almost pulled his hand back. Almost. Instead, he said, "Yeah, but you need it more than I do today." The man took the dollar. He held it like it was something more than a dollar. He looked at Daniel for a long moment, this long, steady look that made Daniel feel seen in a way he hadn't felt in months. "Sit down," the man said. "What?" "Sit down," he said again. "You look like you're carrying something heavy, and you don't look like you're used to asking for help." Daniel sat down on the edge of the cardboard box, and for the next hour, he talked. He didn't plan to. He didn't even understand how it started, but he talked about the job, about the savings, about Sophie and the seashells, about Claire and the kitchen table conversation, about the Milwaukee company and the Cincinnati company, and the feeling that somehow, at 41 years old, he had stopped being someone that the world had use for. He talked until his throat was dry, and the man, this stranger on a cardboard box, listened. Not impatiently, not performatively. He just listened, really listened, the way almost nobody listens anymore. When Daniel finally went quiet, the man said, "You know what your problem is?" Daniel let out a short laugh. "Just the one?" "Your whole life, you built walls between yourself and other people, not because you were mean, because you were scared. And right now, those walls are the thing keeping you from the help you need." Daniel looked at him. "The same instinct that made you stop and talk to me is the instinct that's going to save you, but you have to keep using it. You have to stop pretending you're fine when you're not. You have to ask. Real help comes from real honesty." Daniel didn't know what to say. "What's your name?" he asked. "Walter," the man said. "I'm Daniel." Walter nodded. He reached into his plastic bag, slowly, like someone knew exactly where everything was, and he pulled out a folded piece of paper. He smoothed it on his knee and handed it to Daniel. It was a business card. Old, the edges soft from being carried, but the name on it was still readable. Margaret Cole, Cole Meridian Partners. Daniel looked up. "She's good people," Walter said simply. "Tell her Walter sent you. She'll know."
Daniel went home that afternoon. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time, just looking at the business card. Cole Meridian Partners. He had heard of them, vaguely.
a boutique executive placement firm with a reputation for working with people in transition, mid to senior level, discreet. He wasn't sure why he was taking business advice from a man sleeping on cardboard in Millennium Park, but he also wasn't sure he had anything to lose. He called the number. A woman picked up on the second ring. "Cole Meridian Partners, this is Margaret." "Hi," Daniel said. He hadn't rehearsed this. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I know this is an unusual call, but I was given your card by a man named Walter. He said you'd know who he was." There was a brief silence. "Walter sent you," she said. "Yes." Another pause. Longer this time. "Come in tomorrow morning," she said. 9 o'clock. Just like that. No questionnaire, no intake form, no tell me about your background, just come in. Daniel spent the rest of the evening polishing his resume, ironing his best remaining suit, and telling Claire, really telling her for the first time, everything. He told her about the savings, the exact number, the exact timeline, the real picture. Claire sat quietly while he talked. When he finished, she reached across the table and took both his hands. "We're going to be okay," she said. "How do you know?" he asked. "Because you finally stopped carrying this alone," she said. "That's always been the first step, for us, every time." He looked at his wife and thought, not for the first time and not for the last, that she was smarter than him. I want to stop here for a second. Has someone ever said something simple to you, just a few words, that completely changed how you saw your situation? Tell me in the comments. Those moments matter. Cole Meridian Partners operated out of a brownstone office on North Michigan Avenue, the kind of place that didn't advertise itself. Small bronze plaque by the door, no logo on the windows, a receptionist who smiled like she genuinely meant it. Margaret Cole was 63 years old, silver hair, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She wore a navy blazer over a cream blouse and had the kind of handshake that made you feel like the meeting had already begun before it technically had. She led Daniel into a small conference room. No computer, no phone on the table, just 2 chairs, a legal pad, and a pen. "Tell me everything," she said, "and I mean everything. Not the version you put on your resume, the real version." Daniel hesitated. Then he thought of Walter on the cardboard box. He told her the real version. He told her about the 11 years at Harrington and Cole, not just the achievements, but the ways he had sometimes cut corners under pressure, the relationships he hadn't invested in because he was too focused on performance metrics, the colleagues he had dismissed because they moved too slowly for his taste. He told her about the financial situation at home, about the walls he'd built. The phrase came back to him from yesterday, from Walter. He told her about Sophie and the seashells. Margaret listened the way Walter had listened, completely. When he finished, she put down her pen and looked at him. "Daniel," she said, "I'm going to tell you something and I want you to really hear it. Not just process it, actually hear it." He nodded. "You are not the man that just got fired from Harrington and Cole. That man was a performance. You are the man who sat down on the sidewalk next to Walter." Daniel felt something shift in his chest. "Most of my clients who come through that door," she continued, "they spend the first 3 sessions trying to impress me. They come in with their accomplishments and their titles and their jargon. They're performing, and I spend 3 weeks carefully dismantling that performance to get to the actual human being underneath, who is usually, almost always, far more valuable than the performance was. You came in and skipped all of that," she said, "because Walter taught you to in 1 hour." She smiled. "That man has done more executive coaching in Millennium Park than most certified coaches do in a lifetime," she said. Daniel stared at her. "You know him?" "I've known Walter for 9 years," she said quietly. "He used to be one of the best organizational consultants in this city. His clients included 2 Fortune 500 companies. He had a staff of 14. She paused. And then his wife died, and something in him broke in a way that couldn't be fixed by the things he used to rely on, the work, the achievements, the performance. He lost everything within 2 years. Not because he was weak, because he had never learned in all those years of helping other people how to ask for help himself. She looked at Daniel steadily. "He sends me a client every now and then," she said. "The ones he thinks are ready, the ones who are at that exact edge, where they're broken enough to be honest, but not so broken they've given up. You are the first one in 18 months. The room was very quiet. "Why?" Daniel asked. "Why does he do this? He doesn't know me. He doesn't owe me anything." "Because someone once did it for him," Margaret said simply. "A long time ago, when he was the one with nothing. Someone stopped, someone gave, and he never forgot what that felt like." Over the next 3 weeks, Daniel worked with Margaret's team. It wasn't like job hunting. It was different from anything he had done professionally. They didn't send out his old resume, they rebuilt it, not as a list of titles, but as a story of what he was actually good at, what he had learned, what kind of leader he wanted to become. They coached him not on what to say in interviews, but on how to show up as a real person, not a performance. They had him write letters, not cover letters, actual letters, to colleagues he had treated poorly, to team members he had undervalued, not to send, just to write, to understand. "You'd be amazed," his coach at the firm told him, "how much baggage we carry from our professional relationships, and how much lighter we feel when we put it down, even silently." In week 3, Margaret called him herself. "There's a company I'd like you to meet with," she said. "It's not what you're expecting. It's smaller than your last role. The title would technically be a step back, but I want you to go in with an open mind." He went. The company was called Meridian Transit Solutions, a logistics and supply chain management firm serving underserved nonprofit and community organizations. Not glamorous, not corporate, not the kind of name that got written up in business magazines. But the CEO, a woman named Dr. Amara Osei, met him in a conference room that had crayon drawings on the corkboard and a handwritten mission statement on the wall and a whiteboard full of route optimization diagrams for food bank deliveries across Cook County. She talked to him for 4 minutes about the role. Then she said, "Tell me about a moment in your career when you failed someone." He didn't reach for a polished, safe answer. He thought of Walter. He thought of Margaret. He thought of Claire at the kitchen table. He told her the truth. 3 weeks later, Daniel Mercer became the new VP of Operations at Meridian Transit Solutions. The salary was 60% of his previous one. The office was small, the commute was longer. He took the job without hesitation. I want to hear from you. Have you ever taken a step that looked like a step backward and had it turn out to be the most important move you ever made? Tell me in the comments. You never know who needs to read your story today. 6 months into the new job, Daniel went back to Millennium Park. He wasn't sure Walter would be there. He wasn't sure Walter would remember him. But there he was. Same spot, same green jacket, though now it was summer, so it was draped over the top of the planter instead of worn. Daniel walked over. He had a bag from the diner on Wicker Park. 2 of everything. He sat down next to Walter without being asked this time. "You're back," Walter said. "I'm back," Daniel said. He handed Walter the food. Walter accepted it without ceremony. They ate for a while without talking. The park hummed around them. Kids, tourists, a street musician somewhere doing something cheerful on a saxophone. "How's the job?" Walter asked. Daniel smiled. Not a polished, professional smile, a real one. "It's the hardest thing I've ever done," he said, "and I've never felt more useful in my life." Walter nodded like that was the only correct answer. "Margaret told me about you," Daniel said. "What did she tell you?" "Everything." Walter was quiet for a moment. He looked out at the park. The fountain was going. Kids were running through the mist. "I don't need anything from you," Walter said finally, "if that's what you're working toward." "I know. That's not why I came back." "Then why?" "Because I want you to know," Daniel said, "that what you gave me that morning was worth more than any investment, any bonus, any corner office I ever sat in. And I didn't want to just go live my life and let you wonder if it mattered. It mattered, more than you know." Walter looked at him for a long time. Then he said the strangest thing. You know what's funny? I've been doing this, sending people to Margaret, listening to them, giving them whatever little I have for 9 years. And in 9 years, you're only the second person who ever came back. Daniel frowned. What did the first person do? Walter smiled. It was the first full smile Daniel had seen on his face. She built a company, he said, and she named it after me. Daniel stared at him. Then it hit him. Cole Meridian Partners. Meridian. Walter. His full name. He looked at Walter, this man in a green jacket on a piece of cardboard, and felt the world rearrange itself slightly. Margaret Cole, he said slowly. You were her Walter. Walter nodded. A long time ago, he said. She was 28, brand new to Chicago, lost a job, lost an apartment, sat down next to me in a park, not this one on the south side, and talked for an hour. He was quiet for a moment. And someone before me was her someone, he said. That's how it works. It's not charity, it's a chain, and every link in the chain matters.
6 months into the new job, Daniel went back to Millennium Park. He wasn't sure Walter would be there. He wasn't sure Walter would remember him. But there he was. Same spot, same green jacket, though now it was summer, so it was draped over the top of the planter instead of worn. Daniel walked over. He had a bag from the diner on Wicker Park. 2 of everything. He sat down next to Walter without being asked this time. You're back, Walter said. I'm back, Daniel said. He handed Walter the food. Walter accepted it without ceremony. They ate for a while without talking. The park hummed around them. Kids, tourists, a street musician somewhere doing something cheerful on a saxophone. How's the job? Walter asked. Daniel smiled. Not a polished, professional smile, a real one. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, he said, and I've never felt more useful in my life. Walter nodded like that was the only correct answer. Margaret told me about you, Daniel said. What did she tell you? Everything. Walter was quiet for a moment. He looked out at the park. The fountain was going. Kids were running through the mist. I don't need anything from you, Walter said finally, if that's what you're working toward. I know, that's not why I came back. Then why? Because I want you to know, Daniel said, that what you gave me that morning was worth more than any investment, any bonus, any corner office I ever sat in. And I didn't want to just go live my life and let you wonder if it mattered. It mattered, more than you know. Walter looked at him for a long time. Then he said the strangest thing. You know what's funny? I've been doing this, sending people to Margaret, listening to them, giving them whatever little I have for 9 years. And in 9 years, you're only the second person who ever came back. Daniel frowned. What did the first person do? Walter smiled. It was the first full smile Daniel had seen on his face. She built a company, he said, and she named it after me. Daniel stared at him. Then it hit him. Cole Meridian Partners. Meridian. Walter. His full name. He looked at Walter, this man in a green jacket on a piece of cardboard, and felt the world rearrange itself slightly. Margaret Cole, he said slowly. You were her Walter. Walter nodded. A long time ago, he said. She was 28, brand new to Chicago, lost a job, lost an apartment, sat down next to me in a park, not this one on the south side, and talked for an hour. He was quiet for a moment. And someone before me was her someone, he said. That's how it works. It's not charity, it's a chain, and every link in the chain matters. The speech was recorded by 4 people on their phones that night. By the following morning, the clip had been shared 12,000 times. By the end of the week, a journalist from a Chicago Tribune lifestyle section had reached out to do a story. Daniel agreed, but only on the condition that Walter was the focus, not him. The story ran on a Sunday. It was the most read piece on the Tribune's website that month. 3 things happened as a result. First, A former colleague of Walter's, someone who had worked with him at his consultancy 20 years ago, read the story and reached out to a non-profit housing organization. Within 60 days, Walter had a small studio apartment in Wicker Park. Clean, warm, his own. Second, Meridian Transit Solutions received 8 unsolicited partnership inquiries from organizations across the Midwest. Their operations expanded. Daniel hired a team of 12. Third, Sophie, Daniel's daughter, now 10 years old, wrote a school essay called The Man in the Park. She drew a picture of Walter for the cover. Her teacher photocopied it and put it on the classroom bulletin board. Sophie asked her father if she could go meet Walter. Of course, Daniel said. They went on a Saturday morning. Walter was in his apartment by then. They had his address from the housing coordinator. They brought breakfast. They sat at his kitchen table, which was small and bare, but had a window that looked out over a courtyard where someone had planted tomatoes. Walter looked at Sophie for a moment, at her serious eyes, at the plastic bag she was carrying. "What's in the bag?" he asked. Sophie reached in and pulled out a seashell, a spiral one, creamy white with a faint pink edge. She held it out to him. "It's from Lake Michigan. I found it last summer. I've been saving it. Dad said you've helped a lot of people. I thought maybe you'd like to have something that's just for you." Walter took the shell. He held it in both hands. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "I haven't had something just for me in a long time." Sophie nodded like she understood completely. "You can hear the lake in it," she said.
I want you to sit with this story for a moment before I say anything else, because I think there are a few things inside it that are worth naming. The first is this. Daniel gave $1. He didn't give it because he could afford to. He gave it because he couldn't afford not to. Because something in him recognized something in Walter. And that recognition, that moment of choosing connection over comfort, was the first brick in a road that led somewhere neither of them could have predicted. We talk a lot about giving when we have enough, but the most powerful giving almost always happens at the edge of not having enough. Because that's where the walls come down. That's where we stop performing and start being real. The second thing, Walter. Walter had nothing, and yet he gave everything he actually had, which was wisdom and time and attention. He gave Daniel the truth when everyone else was giving him platitudes. He connected him to the right person, not because he owed Daniel anything, but because the chain had to keep going. You are in a chain, right now, whether you know it or not. Every act of kindness you have ever received, someone gave that to you. And somewhere there is someone ahead of you who is waiting for the link that only you can provide. The third thing, the seashell. A 10-year-old girl gave a man she had never met a seashell from Lake Michigan, something she had found and kept and treasured, something that had no monetary value whatsoever. And it was the most powerful thing in the entire story. Because sometimes what people need, what we all need, is not money or a job or a business card. Sometimes what people need is to be seen, to be told you matter. Not because of what you've done or what you're worth or what you can offer, just because you're here, just because you're you. You can hear the lake in it, Sophie said. And Walter, who had spent 9 years giving pieces of himself to strangers in parks, finally received something just for him. The lake, the sound of it, carried in the palm of a little girl's hand. That's the story. And here is the question I'll leave you with. The one that I think is worth more than any advice I could give. Who is your Walter? Who is the person in your life, or the stranger you've been walking past, who needs someone to sit down next to them on the cardboard? Tell me in the comments. Seriously, your story is part of this chain now too. If this story moved you, if it made you think or feel or remember something important, then you already know this channel is where you belong. Subscribe to Storytales, Ring that notification bell. Share this video with one person who needs to hear it today. These stories exist to remind us of what we already know, but sometimes forget. That kindness is never wasted, that the chain always continues, that you never know which dollar, which hour, which seashell is the one that changes everything. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, sit down on the cardboard once in a while. You'll be surprised who you meet there.